some children's monsters live under their bed at night. But Benjamin Cervera's monster lived in the room next door, and he called her mom.
San Antonio in Texas is a city rich in history, a place where the past and present collide. It was founded as a Spanish mission in 1718 and would become one of the most pivotal locations in Texas history. The echoes of the famous Battle of the Alamo still linger in the heart of the city, with crumbling stone walls of a bygone era. Over the centuries, San Antonio grew into a vibrant metropolis, blending Texan and Mexican cultures into something entirely of its own. The Riverwalk, lined with bustling restaurants and twinkling lights, welcomes millions of visitors each year. But beneath the warmth of its culture and the pride of its history, San Antonio has seen its share of darkness. And on one evening, in a quiet neighbourhood far from the tourist spots, something happened that would leave even the most hardened detective shaken. A 911 call came in one summer evening, reporting an unresponsive young boy. But when he arrived at the hospital, it was clear that this wasn't just a case of a child falling ill. Something had been happening to this boy for a very long time. Christus Children's Hospital in San Antonio, Texas was alive with its usual energy on the evening of August 17, 2021. The halls were filled with the steady rhythm of medical staff moving from room to room, checking on young patients. The soft beeping of monitors blended with the occasional chatter of nurses at their stations. Parents sat beside their children, some reading books aloud, others whispering reassurances. The air carried the distinct scent of antiseptic, a mixture of sterility and care. That evening, an ambulance arrived and paramedics rushed through the emergency room doors with a stretcher. It contained the small, lifeless body of a little boy. The boy was limp and his skin was pale. He was accompanied by a woman, later identified as Miranda Caceres. She spoke frantically, telling staff that her stepson, 4-year-old Benjamin Cervera, had suddenly become unresponsive at home. She had called 911 from the car and the dispatcher told her to stop and begin chest compressions. Miranda did what she was asked and the ambulance met them on the road and sped to the hospital with sirens blazing. The ER staff immediately sprang into action. A nurse swiftly took Benjamin and placed him onto a gurney. A doctor leaned in, checking for any signs of consciousness, while another nurse adjusted an oxygen mask over the child's tiny face. His body was completely still. He was dressed only in a disposable diaper, and it was soaked with urine, an odd detail that didn't go unnoticed by the medical staff. As they rushed Benjamin into a private examination room, his condition became even more alarming. His small frame was far too thin, his ribs pressing against his skin. His eyes were sunken into his face. He weighed just 28 pounds, severely underweight for a boy his age. Bruises of varying shades marked his body, some fresh, others older, fading into yellow and green. The doctor exchanged a glance with the nurse. Something was wrong. This wasn't just an unexplained medical emergency. This appeared to be something far more sinister. One of them quietly instructed another staff member to call the police. Despite their best efforts, Benjamin's fragile body couldn't take any more. His heart stopped, and within moments he was pronounced dead. The hum of the hospital continued around them, but in that small room, there was only silence. Detectives arrived at Christus Children's Hospital not too long after that 911 call was placed. The air was tense. Doctors and nurses moved quietly around the emergency department, their gazes flickering towards the room where a small boy had just been pronounced dead. The detectives immediately made their way over to the woman who had brought Benjamin in, Miranda Caceres. They led Miranda into a quiet room to talk. She looked tired, but her face was lined with frustration rather than grief. Miranda wasted no time in voicing her complaints. Benjamin wasn't her child. He was the child of her boyfriend, Brandon Lee Cervera. She told detectives that she had been the one left to care for the children. Benjamin's 10 and 4-year-old brothers, her 5-year-old son, and their 6-month-old baby. She said that Brandon was rarely home. He worked long hours, and when he wasn't working, he was out with his friends. One of the detectives carefully asked Miranda if she had been struggling with postpartum depression. She shook her head. No, she said. She was just exhausted. Then she spoke about Benjamin. She described him as bad. She said that he never listened, that he cried constantly, and that he was difficult. Her tone was flat, detached, far from the sorrow one might expect from a mother figure who had just lost a child. Then she made a shocking claim. According to Miranda, Benjamin often ate his own feces. She said that he would reach into his diaper and consume it. She said she didn't understand why he did it. Despite his behaviour, she insisted that she had never hurt him. Detectives listened as she explained her version of what had happened. She claimed that she disciplined Benjamin the way any parent would, with timeouts, by making him sit on his bed. She never struck him, she said, never laid a hand on him. But the evidence in front of them had told a different story. Benjamin's body was covered in bruises, and they were in various stages, some fresh, some fading. His tiny frame bore injuries that suggested prolonged mistreatment. When asked about these, Miranda had an explanation. She said that Benjamin had inflicted those injuries on himself. She described the 4-year-old as a troubled child, saying that he often smacked himself in the face, hit his own head, bit his fingernails and toenails until they bled. She claimed that she had told Brandon about his behaviour, but he only responded with anger, cursing at her and dismissing her concerns. Then Miranda reached into her pocket and pulled out her cell phone. She scrolled for several moments before handing it to the detectives. A video played on the screen. In it, Benjamin was striking himself on the head. His voice was small and weak as he begged for bread. Miranda said that before Benjamin died, he had been shoving his fingers down his throat, forcing himself to vomit. She claimed that he had thrown up blood and mucus, and had assumed that it was from scratching his throat too hard. Detectives exchanged a look. This was only the beginning of their investigation, but one thing was already clear. There was far more to Benjamin's story than what Miranda was telling them. As detectives continued their investigation, Benjamin's small body was transported to the Bexar County Medical Examiner's office. It was here, under the bright overhead lights of the autopsy room, that the true extent of his suffering would be revealed. Dr. Kimberly Molina, the chief medical examiner, conducted the autopsy. She found that Benjamin was markedly underweight. His small frame had no body fat. None at all. It was clear that he had been systematically deprived of food over a long period of time. Dr. Molina estimated that Benjamin had been starved for approximately 4.5 months. There were no underlying medical conditions, no hidden illness that could explain his frail state or his untimely death. His body had told a different story. Bruises covered him, his arms, his legs, his torso, even the scalp and the back of his head. They were old and new. And despite what Miranda had claimed, these injuries weren't self-inflicted. The pathologist determined that it would have been impossible for a child of Benjamin's size and condition to cause such widespread damage to himself. None of these injuries had been the cause of Benjamin's death. He hadn't died from blunt force trauma. He hadn't suffered a sudden violent end. Instead, Benjamin had slowly starved to death. With the autopsy results confirming what detectives already suspected, attention turned to the place where he had spent his final months. The investigation led them to the family's apartment on Eisenhower Road, located on the northeast side of San Antonio. Benjamin had lived there with his father, Brandon, his stepmother, Miranda, and his 3 half-siblings. Armed with a search warrant, detectives made their way inside. At first glance, the apartment seemed ordinary. The living room was tidy, the kitchen clean. The master bedroom was well kept. There were no immediate signs of neglect, nothing that screamed abuse. But as they looked closer, small details stood out. The refrigerator was locked, so was the pantry door and the kitchen cabinets. Every source of food was secured. Then detectives came across a second bedroom. The door had a lock on the outside, not to keep intruders out, but to keep somebody in. When they opened the door, the stench of urine hit them like a wall. This was where the children had lived. Benjamin's siblings had beds with duvets and pillows, but Benjamin was forced to sleep on a bare, urine-soaked mattress. In the corner, a camera was mounted on the wall, with its lens pointed directly at the mattress. There was another camera positioned inside the closet. This wasn't just a bedroom, it was a prison, and this was where Benjamin had spent the last months of his short life. As detectives processed the scene at the apartment, their mind drifted back to the hospital. The video that Miranda had shown them of Benjamin hitting himself and begging for food. If she had recorded that moment, was it possible that there were more videos? More evidence of what had happened behind those closed doors? They obtained a search warrant for Miranda's cell phone. What they found was the stuff of nightmares. One video, recorded on the very day of Benjamin's death, showed the 4-year-old sitting in the back of Miranda's car. He was unsecured, his frail body shaking. His voice, which was weak but desperate, filled the recording. "I want some bread." He clasped his hands together as he begged, repeating the plea over and over. From the driver's seat, Miranda's voice could be heard. "No, chill out." This recording was taken just 3 hours before Benjamin was pronounced dead. But that was only the beginning. In another video, Benjamin could be seen striking himself on the head, his small hands smacking his face as he rocked back and forth. He was trembling, still begging for bread and water. Again, Miranda's voice could be heard. In another, he was being forced to eat breadcrumbs off the bathroom floor without using his hands. And then there was a video that was even more disturbing. Benjamin was being made to drink hand sanitizer. The camera captured his reaction, his tiny frame shaking, his hands frantically waving in front of his mouth. Through sobs, he begged for water, crying as the alcohol burned his throat. Once more, Miranda's voice could be heard. In another video, Benjamin was punching himself in the face in the back seat of a car. In yet another, he begged for food. But in this video, he was begging his father, Brandon, for food.
Can I pray, please? Dad, can I pray?
Detectives scrolled through the photos stored on the device. There were images of Benjamin with swollen, bruised eyes. His small face barely recognizable. There was a haunting collection of images that were taken over time, showing the slow, steady deterioration of Benjamin's body. His arms growing thinner, his ribs becoming more pronounced, his eyes, which were once bright, fading into vacant exhaustion. The horrors weren't just limited to Miranda's cell phone. After searching the family's apartment, detectives seized the hard drives and the security cameras that were mounted inside. Like the videos on Miranda's cell phone, the footage captured something truly horrific. In one recording, Benjamin could be seen trying to climb up to get the locks off the refrigerator and pantry. In another, he was trying to find a way around the steel gate in the bedroom. He cried in his bedroom with the door closed, begging for water and milk. another clip captured him picking out an empty bag of snacks from the trash can. In another, Brandon could be heard threatening Benjamin if he kept crying for more bread. One clip that was recorded just 4 days before Benjamin died, Miranda could be seen speaking on the phone with his father, Brandon. Her voice was sharp, frustrated, as she complained. "I can't take it anymore. He starts yelling and screaming and throwing himself because he wants bread." She sounded more annoyed than concerned. And Benjamin, the starving child in the locked bedroom, was still begging for something to eat. One final recording captured something truly horrific. It was Benjamin in his locked bedroom at night wailing. This was just the night before he died. The evidence collected thus far showed that Benjamin had lived a horrific life and had died an agonising death. While Miranda Caceres appeared to be the ringleader, detectives couldn't ignore Benjamin Cervera's role in all of this. He was absent from most videos and photographs, yet the conditions in which his son had lived and died were impossible to overlook. He must have known. The investigation pressed forward. Detectives turned to Benjamin's siblings. What they revealed was even more disturbing. His 10-year-old brother described the routine cruelty that Benjamin endured. Miranda, he said, would force hand sanitizer and hot sauce down Benjamin's throat, watching as he gagged and gasped for relief. But that wasn't the worst of it. The boy described a twisted game that Miranda played, one she called flip-flop. In this so-called game, she would throw Benjamin into the air and then simply let him fall. He would hit the ground hard, crying in pain, but Miranda never confronted him. And then there was the nasty water. The 10-year-old explained that Miranda would scoop urine from the toilet into a cup and force Benjamin to drink it. Detectives listened in horror as he recounted another incident, one that had taken place at a park. Miranda and her sister had taken the children out for the day. While playing, the siblings stepped in dirt and flowers. When they arrived home, Miranda took their soiled shoes and rubbed them on a slice of bread. Then she made Benjamin eat it. He didn't hesitate. He was so hungry that he swallowed it down without question. His brother continued describing the punishments that Miranda would inflict. She would hit Benjamin with a belt or smack him on the bottom, but sometimes she missed, and sometimes she struck him on the lower back. As detectives pieced together the final months of Benjamin's life, they made a chilling discovery. The family was already on the police's radar. A month before Benjamin died, a relative of Brandon had made a desperate call to police and asked for a welfare check. They told the officers that Benjamin was covered in bruises, that he was starving, and that he needed help. The call was assigned to Officer Oliver Perez. He arrived at the apartment, stepping inside to find Brandon in the kitchen. As he spoke with him, a small figure appeared from the shadows. It was Benjamin. His face was swollen, his eyes were blackened, and there was bruising on his head, torso, and arms. He also had a gauze on his right ear. He walked towards the officer and quietly asked for animal crackers. The officer noted that he was thin, abnormally so. His ribs were visible. Officer Perez took out his phone and snapped a few photographs. Benjamin stood in front of him, smiling for the camera. He turned his head from side to side, posing like this was something normal. Then he flexed his arms. When asked about the bruises, Miranda had an answer ready. She told the officer that Benjamin had been hurting himself. She said he would bang his head on the ground and walls, that she was going to take him to a doctor. She said, "He pokes his eyes and he pokes his ear." Brandon then added, "He has behavioural issues. He gets up at night and goes into the kitchen and eats." The officer looked around the apartment. The refrigerator was stocked with food. He noticed the locks on the fridge and pantry doors, but according to his report, none of them were locked at the time. Emergency medics were called to check on Benjamin, and his vitals came back as normal. They asked Benjamin what had happened to his eyes.
See your eyes? How did they get like that? What happened?
Like Miranda said, he said that he poked them. Perez was told to call CPS to look into the situation further and fill out a report. He was told that it would lead to an investigation at a later date. But just 1 month later, Benjamin was dead. For months, detectives worked tirelessly to piece together the horrific details of Benjamin's final days. By February, they had enough evidence to act. Arrest warrants were issued. Benjamin's father, Brandon Lee Cervera, was taken into custody and charged with injury to a child with intent to cause serious bodily injury. His stepmother, Miranda Caceres, was arrested on the same charge. Despite the gruesome nature of Benjamin's suffering, both were released on bond. The decision was made to try them separately, with Miranda's trial scheduled first. Jury selection began in April of 2024, and by the 9th, the panel was seated. The trial was ready to begin. During opening statements, the prosecution wasted no time in putting forward gruesome evidence. The jury was shown the haunting videos of Benjamin, including the one taken just hours before he died, sitting in the back of Miranda's car. His voice, frail and desperate, echoed through the courtroom. "I want some bread." The room was silent other than for a few gasps of horror. Then prosecutor Michael Villarreal stepped forward.
Some children's monsters live under the bed at night. But Benjamin Cervera's monster lived in the room next door, and he called her mom.
He didn't sugarcoat the case. The trial, he explained, was about the cold, painful, slow starvation of a child. He warned the jurors that what they were about to see over the coming days would be disturbing. Photos and videos documenting Benjamin's physical decline over 5 months. The evidence, he said, would lead no doubt as to what had happened. When the prosecutor stepped down, defense attorney Anthony Cantrell said that he was waiving his opening statements to the beginning of their case later. The testimony then began. The first witness was Detective Lawrence Salles. He methodically walked the jury through the dozens of photographs and videos recovered from Miranda's cell phone and the security cameras inside the apartment. The images were devastating. Over just 4 months, Benjamin had visibly deteriorated. His arms had become skeletal. His face had hollowed out. His skin stretched too tightly over his bones. Next on the stand was Dr. James Lukfer, a paediatrician and child abuse expert. He had reviewed Benjamin's growth charts. Before his 4th birthday, Benjamin had been a healthy child, his health and weight tracking normally. Then something changed. Dr. Lukfer explained that pretty abruptly after his 4th birthday, Benjamin's weight began to decline. There was no medical reason for this, no underlying condition. The only explanation was starvation. But the defence fought back. Attorney Anthony Cantrell attempted to discredit the testimony. He pointed out that Miranda had cooperated fully with detectives, even handing over her cell phone, the very device that contained the incriminating evidence. He also argued that Miranda had taken Benjamin to a doctor at one point. According to Cantrell, she believed that Benjamin had behavioural issues, possibly autism. She had been trying, he claimed, to prove that his struggles weren't normal. But the prosecution had a different theory. Miranda wasn't looking for help. She was looking for an excuse. And no excuse could explain what had happened to Benjamin. After days of expert testimony and forensic evidence, it was time for the jury to hear from somebody who had lived inside that apartment. Somebody who had witnessed Benjamin's suffering firsthand. Benjamin's 12-year-old brother, identified only as BC, was led to the witness stand. He clutched a stuffed toy tightly in his hands, his small frame barely filling the seat. The courtroom held its breath. State District Judge Christina Escalona had allowed BC's guardian, a great aunt, to sit where he could see her, a small comfort in a room that was heavy with tension. BC refused to look towards his stepmother Miranda. She, on the other hand, stared at him, her expression dark. At times she appeared angry, other times bored. But BC kept his eyes down, his voice barely above a whisper as he started to tell his story. He described the punishments that Miranda inflicted on his brother.
She will usually force Benji to open his mouth by grabbing his mouth and trying to open it. And Benji will usually cry because it hurts, and then this hand sanitizer tastes bad.
He spoke about the hand sanitizer, the hot sauce, and the cups of urine she forced him to drink.
Was there hand sanitizer in the home in the second place?
Yes.
What was it used for?
It was used for Miranda to punish.
He explained how Miranda would throw Benjamin into the air, letting him fall to the ground crying. How she would make him drink toilet water whenever she was mad. Whenever Benjamin did something bad.
She will get mad whenever he spills stuff or he does something on accident.
BC told the jury that Benjamin was always hungry. He had tried to get food, but the pantry was always locked. The fridge was locked. The cabinets were locked. The only thing that was ever left out was bread. He testified, Miranda wouldn't feed Benji. She would feed him when my dad was there, or he would bring food. The courtroom was silent as the little boy spoke. Then he admitted something heartbreaking. He had been too scared to help his little brother. He said he had tried once to give Benjamin food, but Miranda snatched it from him and threw it in the trash. Now it was the defence attorney's turn. Anthony Cantrell stepped forward. He asked BC whether he had ever seen his brother throw himself onto the floor or bang his head like Miranda had claimed. He responded and said he saw his brother bang his head against the wall once, but said that Miranda had told him to do it. The defence attorney then asked BC why he never told his father what was happening to Benjamin. He replied, I was terrified of Miranda. The defence attorney suggested that BC would say whatever was necessary to protect his father. BC replied yes, then added that he would tell the truth to save his father. He then quietly added, my dad is my only piece left. Without him, it's like I don't even have a dad. The prosecution had presented their case in stark, brutal detail. Dr. Kimberly Molina, the pathologist who performed Benjamin's autopsy, took to the stand. She said that Benjamin hadn't died quickly. He had been starved, systematically, over a period of 4.5 months. But Miranda's defence attorney, Cantrell, wasn't ready to concede. He tried to poke holes in her findings. He suggested that Benjamin might have had type 1 diabetes. He pointed to his high glucose levels at the time of his death, to his excessive thirst, his hunger, his weight loss. Dr. Molina didn't waver, however. She told the jury that glucose testing had been conducted and that Benjamin didn't have diabetes. His death wasn't the result of an undiagnosed medical condition. She said that he was starved to death, plain and simple. When Dr. Molina stepped down, the prosecution rested their case. Now it was the defence's turn. Cantrell stood before the jury and made his argument. He stated, Miranda Caceres is no monster. She loved these children. She never withheld food. She was a caring mother and stepmother. He told the jury that Miranda had taken Benjamin to doctors at least 7 times since she moved in with Brandon. To back up their claims, the defence called in their own experts. First, Dr. William Anderson, a forensic pathologist, then Dr. Daniel Giepard, a paediatric expert. Both of them challenged Dr. Molina's conclusions. I don't think he necessarily starved to death, Giepard said. It's more likely that something other than starvation caused his demise. The defence said that Benjamin was simply a skinny child. His weight, although shocking, wasn't that uncommon for kids in the 5th percentile, he said. Dr. Anderson claimed that Benjamin lacked one key symptom of starvation, a fatty liver. He also pointed out that Benjamin had brain swelling, but no cause had been determined. They argued that more tests should have been conducted, that starvation wasn't the only explanation. Then the defence shifted tactics. They brought in Miranda's family First her mother Alice and then her sister April. They painted a picture of Miranda as a devoted and overwhelmed mother. They painted her not as an abuser, but a victim. Alice insisted. She loved those kids. She was the one running that house, not Brandon. She was treated like a slave. Her sister April described Miranda as a caring parent who played with the children, cooked and cleaned. She was simply doing her best, she said. Finally, the defence called Dr. Joanne Murphy, a clinical psychologist. She suggested that Benjamin may have been on the autism spectrum, that his behaviour, his cries, his self-harm, fit the profile of an autistic child. But under questioning, she admitted something critical. She had never actually reviewed Benjamin's medical records. Her assessment was based only on photographs and interviews. The judge ruled that her testimony would be limited. And after that, the defence rested their case. Both sides made their final plea to the jury. Defence Cantrell argued that the prosecution had tunnel vision, that they had ignored possible underlying medical issues, that Benjamin's death was a tragedy but not a crime. But the prosecution fired back. Prosecutor Thomas D'Amico reminded the jury of the facts. The locks on the fridge, the locks on the pantry, the locks on the children's bedroom door. He then told them to remember Miranda's own words to police. The videos, the photographs, the evidence. Then prosecutor Philip Rale drove the final nail in the coffin. You got to meet the monster that Benji lived with, he said. The jury then left to deliberate. They were gone for less than an hour. The tension in the courtroom was palpable as they returned. They found Miranda Caceres guilty of injury to a child causing serious bodily injury. She showed no emotion. She didn't flinch. She just stared ahead. That same jury now needed to determine Miranda's sentence. Her defence attorney was hoping that they would show her leniency. He wanted the jury to sentence her to probation, not prison. He said that she loved being a mother before telling the jury. She knew something was wrong. She set up the doctor's appointments. He said that Miranda loved children and was a very decent, quiet person. He then revealed that she had a tattoo of Benjamin's birth date and his death date on her arm. He then called Miranda to the witness stand. She was emotional, wiping away tears as she described growing up in Pleasanton. She said that she had been raped when she was younger and had turned to self-harm. Then she moved in with Brandon. She said that her little boy had a great relationship with his new stepbrothers. Speaking about Benjamin, she said, I love taking care of him. According to Miranda, she started taking videos and photographs of Benjamin to show Brandon his behaviour. She also wanted to show Child Protective Services. She denied that she had abused Benjamin or starved him, telling the jury, I didn't starve him. I didn't force hand sanitizer. I never forced him to eat salsa. According to Miranda, she was under complete control of Brandon. She accused him of spanking, hitting, and dragging Benjamin through the house whenever he soiled his diapers. A text message was then read aloud that Miranda had sent to her mother. In the message she had written, I don't know how long I can take this. This fucking kid. My son can't sleep because of this little 5-year-old that everyone thinks is so perfect. I'm done. This kid needs a good one. She denied that she had sent the text message repeatedly before saying that the words had come from Brandon, who had dictated what she typed.
You will not take responsibility for any of it. Correct?
I never caused those injuries.
Again, you're not taking responsibility for any of those injuries, correct?
Yes, because I never hit him.
Who caused those injuries to Benji?
Dad.
Is this from the gate incident too?
No, the belt.
During Prosecutor D'Amico's closing arguments, he played a video of Benjamin. He was sitting in the dark, crying, I want bread. Miranda could be heard saying he won't get bread and that he needed to lie down. He then sarcastically said to the jury, starvation will continue until the morale improves. How I was raised, if a child is hungry, you feed them. During defence attorney Cantrell's closing arguments, he stated, You made your mind up. Somebody had to pay. Do I fault you? No, but I know it's hard. He then urged the jury to sentence Miranda to 10 years or less, which would allow her to apply for probation. Miranda Caceres could have been sentenced to life in prison. The jury, however, sentenced her to 25 years. As Miranda was sent off to begin her sentence, the trial for Benjamin's father, Benjamin Cervera, began. During the opening statements, heartbreaking photographs of Benjamin were shown to the jury. His small, frail body was hooked up to machines in the hospital. He was covered in bruises. Prosecutor Michael Villarreal stood before the jury and told them that Brandon had withheld food and water from his son and had failed to seek proper medical care for him. He stated, "Day in and day out, Benji is begging for food, while Mr. Cervera does absolutely nothing." According to Brandon's defense attorney, Jody Sawyer, Benjamin didn't actually starve to death. She said that she was going to be disputing the pathologist's findings. She said to the jury, "What we want to know is what everyone else wants to know. Why Benji died. It has not been resolved by what the medical examiner tells you." She said that Benjamin had been born premature and his parents were told that he would have health problems. She also said that he had been seen by more than 10 medical professionals in the lead up to his death. The testimony got underway, and it was much the same as the testimony at Miranda's trial. This time, however, Officer Oliver Perez testified as well. He had been the officer to conduct the earlier welfare check on Benjamin.
He had visible injuries, a lot of bruising on his eyes, bruising on his torso. He was skinny, being able to see his bones.
He said he regretted not doing more during and after, and that he should have questioned Benjamin alone. He testified, "I believe I could have done more. I wish I could have done more." During the trial, Dr. Molina doubled down on her ruling that Benjamin had starved to death. She testified, "In reviewing this case, I read numerous articles on my training and experience on starvation. I relied on my education and experience." She showed Benjamin's growth chart and pointed out that he had no growth within the last 10 months of his life. She stated, "When looking at adults and assessing starvation, we can look at just weight loss. But when looking at children, it's not just about weight loss, but failure to grow." When Benjamin died, he had little to no body fat, and his intestinal tract had no food in it. She said that there were signs he was malnourished, including that he had macrocytic anemia and that he had no thymus gland, which can disappear in a child if they are under extreme stress. Defense attorney Sawyer said during cross-examination that no doctors who saw Benjamin before his death reported that he had a vitamin deficiency. She also questioned the pathologist on why she didn't rule out suffocation and arrhythmia as a cause of death. She replied that there was no evidence to show that Benjamin had died from either, but said she also couldn't dispute it. After she stepped down, the prosecution called Brandon's sister, Candice Irene Sanchez, to the stand. She had been the one to call the police for the welfare check a month before Benjamin died. Candice had taken care of Benjamin for about 6 months back in 2020. She told the jury that Benjamin had been living with his biological mother, but in 2019 he had begun living with his father. She recalled how he was eating and growing normally back then. She hadn't seen Benjamin in months, but shortly before he died, Brandon had told her that Benjamin was hurting himself. He told her that his son was putting things in his ears, hitting his head against the wall and biting his fingernails. She testified, "My reaction was something was wrong. It put me in mama bear mode. I was concerned." Her brother also told her that Benjamin was eating a lot and always trying to find food. She questioned why, if he was being fed, was he always hungry? The prosecution also entered text messages into evidence. There were ones from the 12th of August between Brandon and Miranda. In the messages, Brandon told Miranda that Benjamin had been begging for bread all day. He said that he had given some, but he wanted more. Miranda replied and told Brandon to give him more bread. Brandon then responded, "He don't need to eat dinner." The tragic videos of Benjamin were once more played for the jury. In one that was captured just days before he died, Benjamin nervously asked his father for something to eat. He had his hands folded in front of him and his clothes hung off his frail body. He begged.
Come please. Come please. Dad. Dad. Come please.
He asked for some bread, water, or milk before crying, "I want some bread." As the videos played in the courtroom, many members of the jury had to look away. Brandon, on the other hand, remained expressionless. In another video, Brandon closed Benjamin in his bedroom and told him to shut the fuck up.
I want to pause for a second. There appears to be somebody at the beginning of the video, right?
Yes.
Do you recognize that voice?
Yes.
Who's?
The defendant.
And what do you hear him say?
Shut the fuck up.
And who is this individual?
Benji.
During the trial, the defence team tried to show that Benjamin hadn't been starved. They called on Dr. Daniel Giepard, the ER physician who treated Benjamin the day he died. He said he didn't believe that Benjamin looked cachetic from a clinical perspective. That's a medical term referring to an extreme loss of fat and muscle mass. This contradicted what the pathologist had testified and reported. It also contradicted photographs of Benjamin looking completely malnourished with his bones protruding from his frail body. The doctor testified. It seems like there were people that were trying to go to conclusions that didn't feel correct. I think it would have been unfair for Benji to have his parents punished for something they didn't do. After that, the trial came to a close. During closing arguments, Prosecutor Villarreal stated, "The system up until his death failed Benji. A month before his death, this child should not have stayed with this defendant who was starving him. The signs were there." He reminded the jury of the evidence, the recordings, and asked why cameras had been set up in the kitchen to watch Benjamin to make sure that he wasn't stealing food. Once more, Brandon's defence team contended that Benjamin hadn't starved to death, that an underlying medical condition had killed him. She stated, "I'm not saying that Brandon is a perfect parent, but what I'm saying is the state has brought you no evidence that he was a cruel parent, or that he was a parent that intended in any way to deprive his child everything he needed." The jury deliberated for almost 7 hours before returning with a verdict. The courtroom slowly filled up and then fell to a hushed silence as the verdict was announced.
We, the jury, find the defendant Benjamin Cervera not guilty of the offense of injury to a child as charged in the indictment, signed by the presiding juror.
They had found Benjamin Cervera not guilty on all of the charges against him. As the verdict was announced, Brandon sobbed. He was allowed to return home a free man, while Benjamin remained in the ground. It was an unexpected outcome. Outside of court, District Attorney Joe Gonzalez stated, "I want to take a moment to acknowledge the tragic loss of Benjamin. Our hearts go out to the family, as well as those members of law enforcement, the Bexar County District Attorney victim advocates, prosecutors, investigators, and all who worked to see that Benjamin's death was not in vain, and that this community will not forget his tragically untimely loss." Well, besties, that is it for this episode of Morbidology. As always, thank you so much for listening, and I'd like to say a massive thank you to my newest supporter up on Patreon, Paladin. The link for Patreon is in the show notes if you'd like to join, and you can join for as little as $1 a month. There are absolutely no obligations. You can cancel your subscription at any point. If you didn't know, Morbidology is also now up on YouTube, so if you could head on over there and hit the subscribe button, I would be eternally grateful. Remember to check us out at morbidology.com for more information about this episode and to read some true crime articles. Until next time, take care of yourselves, stay safe, and have an amazing week.